In the heat of the moment, precision and excellence are paramount. It's a creed we live by, both in service and beyond. Our beans are sourced from the finest regions, roasted with perfection, and packed with care. Whether you prefer whole beans or ground coffee, Operator Espresso delivers a cup that's unmatched. Whether you're sharing stories with fellow veterans or gearing up for a demanding day, Operator Espresso is there to fuel your mission. Operator Espresso is more than just coffee. It's a tribute to excellence. Join us in our mission. Experience the difference. Taste the honor.
All right. Hey, welcome, folks. Mil-Spec Opsmaker here. It's going to be your Sitrep at 6/25/2024, and we're going to get into the deets. It looks like Russia has announced that their summer offensive is officially underway. We're going to look at the map because I don't really know exactly what we're looking at because nothing has really changed other than, I mean, Russia's still popping stuff off. There are some clear observations of what's going on in the region. We'll look at that closer. We're going to look at the flights. We're going to talk E6 TACAMO. We're going to be talking about the R135s. In various factors, whether it's SIG Intel, nuke sniffer, whatever it may be. And then just, our general look at the skies. But we got a lot of stuff to cover. There are a lot of moving pieces going on. And just like Trump said, the next 5 months, I think are going to be very sporty. And I definitely think that everybody is trying to get a war underway before we have the potential for Trump coming into office. Because we all know once he gets in, all that funding to Ukraine is going to get kiboshed, and he's going to right that wrong. So let's do this. Let's jump over here to our mini in Skyglass as we get into the deets. And we're sitting around 261 aircraft currently up. That's mil aircraft over the United States. I've already stripped out 72 Tex 2s, 56 EC 45s, 44 T-38s, and 8 Hawk trainers. So let's see what it makes up. A big portion. You got 50 aircraft that are flying incognito. And you can see some of these are ones that I actually already have on my list, probably P8s, sub-hunters. And then you get over to H60s. Look at this, 36 of them. Now, you have to discount the stuff that's going on down here in the Panhandle because that's mostly training. But this up in the Northeast, woo, that is busy, busy, busy. Then we get over to the air refuelers. And you can see coast to coast, left coast is just starting to get a little spooled up. But 31 KC-135s currently in the sky. We go down a little further. I'm going to add 8 more 767 Pegasus. And yeah, it looks pretty busy. Very busy over the Northeast. And let's break away from that. Let's see. What else did, this one caught my eye. Five R135s up. We're going to look closer at that in just a minute because I will tell you there is a little bit of a mix in here in terms of what it is we're actually looking at. And you can see that's all 5 of them are across the United States. Yeah, it's pretty unusual. I don't think well, it's been a hot minute since I've seen 5 R135s airborne over the U.S. And we got a couple E2s. You can see those are going to be, that's an AWACS platform, but smaller variant made for landing on and off carriers right over the Chesapeake Bay area, probably just doing some touch and goes. A couple of drones, low altitude ones. This one here is actually a British drone. We'll look at that when we get to our watch list. A couple gunships, H-64 gunships. See those? All right. Okay, let's do this. Let's see what we got. Let's look at our watch list here first and foremost. And I've added the traces to this one so you can just see where they're kind of bouncing around. But notice that the Italian little intel birds are up over Italy in that general region. And then you can see we've got another one there that looks to be taken off out of Portugal. That's a little Gulfstream G5. Then some air refuelers. Look at the craziness in terms of air refueling over the North Sea. We'll look at that closer here in a minute too when we pull in the actual tanker data. There's like your Brio 68. You see them running in and out of Europe. Those are Intel birds live, by the way. This is all up and active as we speak. that strip back and forth looking into Crimea, into Ukraine, and then obviously into Serbia, who is pro-Russia. And then you can see some flights in and out of Kuwait. Now we get over here to the United States, and it's a little light, but do notice we've got a lot of intel balloons on the move, right? I've got 3 of them up just in my watch list, currently showing now. And you look at the masses, and there are more up there that were just not listed as mil, all right, on my watch list. So then you can see, looks like we got some of the agency boys up and about. And that's going to be another one of the Brio, the LaSalle Aviation aircraft, doing a little intel gathering of the U.S. and a Navy P-3 bouncing out of the U.S. Looks like a little drone there up in Canada. And then I see a little broken trace leaving, headed over to, this is actually rolling out, looks to be going to South Korea. I think that, anyway, we'll look at that stuff here in just a minute. Okay, now let's look at the intel side. The biggest takeaway is really going to be what's going on over Europe. All right, last 5 days, intel gathering. Now this, when you talk about intel, it's the ISR aspect. Intel, surveillance, reconnaissance. The reason you see it down over the Mediterranean is because Russia is in Libya. We do see some stuff look like broken out of Saudi, headed towards the Red Sea. And then over the United States, really, you can see one looks to be exiting the U.S., but everything else just kind of looks to be what we normally see here. Okay. All right, let's talk sub-hunters. And the interesting piece is just you'll see left coast, right? You see the spot right down here. If you look at that, it's out near that danger area. Okay, we know that they're very concerned with what is coming and going off the left coast there down south. And then, of course, out over, you can see couple little ones there off of Tampa, out over the Gulf of Mexico, then out over the Atlantic down towards the Bahamas. Looks like it went right up the coast of Florida. And some look to be leaving the Northeast, headed over the drink. You will see, look at the flurry. Again, we see a lot of stuff going on over the North Sea. We'll look closer to see if there are any exercise boxes. But air refuelers, which is a big indicator of fighters, so it seems to be very active. Right? Again, this is sub-hunters. See, this is in and out of Constanta. We'll look at that base here and talk a little bit more about that shortly as well. And then, of course, you can see what's going on over Israel. Yeah, it's kind of, you expect that. And we'll talk about the Israel piece, too. Yeah, you can see a little bit off of the Japan coastline, and then down under and over there in the North Island, all right, north headed towards Auckland, it looks like, before it disappears. Again, this is all intelligence, or sorry, sub-hunters. Sub-hunters. All right, let's do the drone button here and see what's going on now. We have had some chatter about a drone being shot down. I don't know that was the case. Now, did it have some incident? I see a sharp descent out over what looks to be close to Crimea. You can see that's going to be one of those high-altitude Q4 drones. And you can see some zigzags coming back in, almost as if maybe that drone had a little bit of issue. It's not as clean as what we would normally see. So did something happen? Maybe. But, Russia says it happened. U.S. says it didn't happen. So anyway, it's just, the propaganda machine back and forth. He said, she said. You can see some low altitude drones there. A couple things taken off out of and over the Iraq area towards Syria. Some stuff out of Bahrain. And then you can see over near Japan, down near Okinawa, a little active there. Again, this is drone activity. So we'll talk more about the drone piece here in just a minute from the Russian and the other aspect. I think there are some other data points we have to look at within this context of the story. All right. And then you can see up and down the East Coast. It's probably because the Ruskies are probably off our East Coast. Okay. And again, if you look at the United States, you look at the danger boxes off of that general area, that's why we have that activity. Okay. All right. Some little blurps there. Okay. Now, let's talk E6 TACAMO. If you're not familiar with this aircraft, it's take charge, move out. What does that mean, really? We'll get into the deets of that. You can see off deep into the Atlantic. All right. A little bit just off the coast and shoreline of the eastern seaboard. And then here's the one that's over we saw that one land the other day. Very unusual for an E6 TACAMO to be in that neck of the woods. I've count on one hand the times I've seen it. You can see it headed out. In that same area, we saw the refuelers, okay? Now, let me go to Mini just for a second because I want to talk about that TACAMO for a minute. If you're not familiar with that particular aircraft, this is what it looks like. It looks like just a standard commercial aviation plane, just all white, not a lot of markings on it. But it's got some new modern things added to it. It's the same airframe that you see for the R-135s, the KC-135s. It's an old platform. And it's, just kind of give you a general breakdown of what this aircraft does. When you hear me talk about the E-6B Mercury, that's what it is. TACAMO, take charge, move out. So it's a nuclear command and control, all right? It provides secure communication link between the president and the SecDef and U.S. strategic forces, including nuclear missile submarines, bombers, and missile silos. It ensures that the nuclear commands can be delivered even if ground-based communication systems are compromised. The other piece, too, is it's a comms relay, right? And we talked about that between the president and SecDef, et cetera. But this also can give us secure voice and data communication and reliable communication links between different military units and command centers. And then it also acts as an airborne command post. The aircraft can act, actually giving commanders the ability to directly integrate or work with military operations from the sky, and then giving them that continuity of command in crisis situations. And then the last piece is just the strategic coordination aspect. It talks with other airborne assets, satellites, ground stations, etc., to basically dismantle critical information and commands. So that is what this little bad mamma jammer does, and you'll see it typically over the United States. We see you see a handful, maybe a half a dozen from time to time, which is a very large amount that are up. What we don't see is that aircraft moving across the drink that we see now. So again, just a data point for you. So, all right, that's the E6 TACAMO. Let's talk AWACS. And remember, this is an advanced early warning system. Okay, they're looking for nukes, but just notice how it gets out here to these little points, right? Down towards just kind of that southern flank along the United States. East Coast, down south, and then down south into that danger zone that we talked about several times relative to the left coast, okay? All right, and then you can see the stuff going on. Those man-in-the-middle circles, again, this thing has a lot of different capabilities. Up there, forward operating base near Constanta, right, down into Turkey. And, of course, look at this, right over Cyprus, man in the middle over Cyprus. That tells you a lot, doesn't it? And then you can see over there. Now, if you're not familiar with what man in the middle is, I'll back up a little bit. That's where that aircraft becomes basically an airborne cell tower. People on the ground think their smartphones are communicating with the ground tower, but really it's talking to that airplane, and it's just gathering all your data, all right? Okay. Let's do R-135s. This is, first and foremost, this can be SIG intel, okay? So this is gathering any type of information relative to the transmittal of documents, text messages, communication, anything from your cell phone's perspective, missile systems, all right? This right here is that's just a calibration flight. L3Com has a lab down on ground below that. All right. Now that SIG intel, I'm telling you, they are watching activity going on out there, whether it's militia, whether it's cartel, I don't know what it is, but they are gathering, they're grabbing everything in the sky, okay? Now this one's interesting. This is actually a transition. You'll see it headed out towards Hawaii, but this is ballistic missile data gatherer, right? So when there's a flight, ballistic missile flight or anything like that, this thing goes downrange and gets all the telemetry data and all that other good stuff. Nothing over into Europe, although we do see this one coming out of Okinawa, headed north towards Japan, probably due to some kind of missile launches or whatever with North Korea, okay? Again, that's the last 5 days. Now, this is your nuke sniffer. Only got one flight, this one up. Notice that it heads down south towards Miami, right? Last 5 days, that's because the Russians were down there. Remember, they tried to say, oh, we're not worried about the Russians having any type of, nukes down there. Yeah, but we took an R-135 nuke sniffer and just kind of pointed it right down there so they could go and check that out. So, yeah, it tells you all that you need to know because they're lying to us. Now, air refuelers. Remember, this is a good indicator of fighters. The big key takeaway here are the transitions. Notice the amount of long legs flying out over the Mediterranean right up towards Israel. That's a good indicator we got a lot of fighters out over that area also. All right, and you can see Constanta, these little forward marshalling points out over the North Sea. Again, that is one of those things that we're just seeing a whole bunch of activity. We're going to get into it, look closer at that general area here in just a minute. And then see the little flight that rolls out of Malta down into Africa? Right? We know there's a lot of stuff happening down in Niger. And then, of course, you've got these long transitions. That is a very big indicator of fighters being moved from one point to another. All right. And you can see, look at that. Out over the Atlantic, right? We saw the E6, that was way out there. Now that could be supporting that E6 out over the Atlantic. They may have done a little air refueling there. And then up to Alaska. Again, transitions. We know we got F-22s, F-35s in Alaska, okay? All right. Now look at the C-17 traffic over the last 5 days and just notice, it's not uncommon to see stuff, notice in and out of Haiti, all right? In and out of Central America, down towards Panama, along the borders, okay? And so, and then the transition stuff, you can see, not uncommon to see a lot of flights going to Hawaii because they are an island and they have to be supplied some way. All right, but see these long flights? Look at all the amount of flights going across the drink from the U.S., across the Atlantic, into Ramstein. Heavy flows into Ramstein, heavy flows down into Portugal and over into, looks to be Amman, Jordan. A lot of flights. See all this, how the broken traces jump down into Amman, and then see all these flights in and out of Egypt. That's right across the border. So it's a data point for you, but C-17 traffic, pretty active. Now go take a look at this aspect. We get into Omni. See the broken trace coming in. I think most of what we see abroad. Now, over the U.S., see these points down right at the border? Yeah, they picked up where Swift Air left off. Look at this into Central America, down to Panama, into Colombia, down into South America, heavy into Haiti, in and out of Florida, all over the U.S., right? That's going to be a blend of troops and immigrants. See the flights. Look at the flurry into Hawaii. Now, get over here to Europe, and it's, to me, this is very much troop-related, more so than anything else. You see them going to all of the bases in Europe. That's probably because we're beefing up. When we get into looking at the actual map of all the airstrikes and things that are going on over into Europe, it definitely tells a story, all right? So let's do this. Let's jump on over here. We're going to start off first and foremost here with Flashbang. Just notice that he has since, well, let's see, Saturday, Friday. So since Friday, he went to Zabunka, and he has been over in Camp David the entire time. I imagine he's getting prepared for his debate with Trump. It's going to be interesting. We keep hearing a lot of talk about him getting bounced out like that he's going to drop because of health issues. Could this be a necessary event where he comes out in front of the American people, blunders, and everybody stops at the end of that and says, this guy should not be sitting in the office of the president. So maybe this could be a total setup. Well, we'll watch and see what happens. All right. Okay, check this out. If you have been hearing about all of the job reports and how great it's been, and Bidenomics, just the best thing since sliced bread. Look, here is just one more data point for you that we are being lied to about all of the jobs and the performance and the economy and everything else. This is what the media does, okay? And when you get to the left, and you can see out here, look at this. California reveals all job gains in 2023 were fake. And so you get down, and this is the big takeaway right here is this separation. This is actual, and you can see it hit here around September, Q4. Boom, free fell, all right? And then now they're trying to say these are the new job, like this is coming back. Notice it's just barely above the line here, but this is probably even suspect given the fact that they lied about this. Now, take a look as we go up a little further, and you're going to notice this was the line they tried to tell you was happening, that they were having these insane amount of gains, and the reality was it was down here at free fell. So they were just straight up lying to you. This state right here did the same thing at the I think the week prior to the election when Obama got reelected, when the Kenyan got his second term. They just conveniently omitted the jobs report out of California, didn't tell anybody, and it made it look like it was a stellar moment. And in reality, it wasn't. They later came back. This is right out of the playbook of the left. Okay. Okay, now we've talked about Project Pelican. We've talked about the port of Delaware and the fact that these ports are starting to be run by, in very long, 30, 40-year agreements. They're being run by countries other than the United States, and not necessarily friendly countries. But look at this right here. This Philly shipyard just sold to Hanwha for $100 million. And that is a South Korean company that just bought it. And now they're going to run the shipyard in Philly. All right. U.S. is for sale, clearly. All right. And here's one for you. Now, this is an interesting piece because I don't know where it lies relative to Israel, because Israel also uses the Patriot missile system, although their David Sling is significantly less expensive and probably far more accurate. But they do get these from us. All right. U.S. pauses all Patriot shipments to other countries and will redirect everything to Ukraine. This is the Patriot missile system, right? These are your launch tubes if you're not familiar with how that whole thing works. But Poland, Germany, Romania, Spain, and Switzerland will not receive Patriot complexes and anti-aircraft missile purchased from the United States. Everything will go to Ukraine. That tells you things are about to pop off here. The fact that they are shifting everything and putting it into Ukraine is because they know Russia's probably about to go in and do some serious stuff, okay? All right. U.S. expected to bolster Ukraine's defense with another $150 million in munitions. It just never ends. We just gave them money, and here we are already getting ready to just add another $150 million of your hard-earned money to Ukraine. It is our Bohica moment of the day. But for the love of God, would someone please stop the insanity? All right. You're just burying us. It's just not good. Okay. Let's get over here just for a brief minute. I want to look at a couple little things here just to see what we've got going on. Now, there was talk about this drone activity, that it was caused by turbulence, etc. I'm just going to kind of go through some of this. I don't see anything in the last 24 hours relative to turbulence at any altitude over the Black Sea. So I would say we can probably chalk that up as not accurate, okay? It doesn't mean it didn't happen, but this is a pretty big box. And if it got too close to Crimea, they could very well have popped something off that, disrupted it, made it difficult to fly back. Not out of, the realm of possibilities. Given the fact that we just talked about the Russians just put in S-500, which are supposedly good for knocking down hypersonics, but he's put in the S-500 missile defense system in Crimea that has a surface to altitude ceiling of, I think, 65,000 feet, which is right into the wheelhousing of a Q-4 drone. And it actually it goes above what even our fighters could do over in there in terms of that altitude. Typically, fighter ceiling, with the exception of maybe the F-22 that has Super Cruise, may be able to get around 60,000 in terms, but I think 50, 52 is kind of the recorded number for most fighter aircraft, all right? And F-22 being the top of that. Everything else is probably well below 50 in the mid to high 40 range, altitude-wise, okay? Okay, now, the North Sea, we saw a whole bunch of stuff going on out here. We had air refuelers up over this area. It looks like we've got a couple of boxes. Looks like an exercise is scheduled from June 3rd to September 3rd. So that could be why we saw some of that. And then we've got this activity. These are danger boxes. What I think is interesting is just like the United States, they're starting to put danger boxes out in the water, all around the area. Yeah. Again, I feel like we're getting pretty close, okay? All right, let's look at what's going on with our ships. And you're going to notice the big thing here was last time we checked in, the Eisenhower was actually down here in the Red Sea. It has since moved up here to the Mediterranean. It is operating right here and just not far from the coastline of Israel. That is because of everything going on with the Lebanon peace. All right. And then the other big takeaway is the Roosevelt actually just arrived in South Korea. All right. And this gives you kind of an idea of where most of our fleet is located right now. All right, U.S. carrier in Med ahead of possible war with Lebanon. Yeah, let's talk about this for a minute. So you see, we just showed you the map. The Eisenhower has been deployed for months in the Red Sea, and it makes a stop in the region on its way to its home port in Virginia. We'll see. They may slow roll that in the area. We'll see how quickly it actually exits the area. But let's do this. I'm going to take you over to the map. We're going to hide the Ukraine one first. I want to show you the Israeli one. Key takeaway. If you look up to the north, all the blue icons that you see, those are strikes by Israel hitting Hezbollah and anything north up there from a terrorist perspective, okay? Hezbollah has been doing a lot of launching from the north. I've been doing everything from catching mountains on fire to popping things off into the cities. And then, of course, you can see Gaza down south. Now, the red, those are hits by Hamas. So, again, this is just a data point for you. But we are watching, I think, what may be the expansion of Israel getting ready to push up into Lebanon. It's already been approved by their council and or administration and approved to go do that. So let's see what happens. The U.S. is trying to make them not do it. But, okay, talked over for a minute. Big thing, just notice you got a C5 that just came inbound. You've got a Amerijet in, several Atlas Airs, a Reach, that's a C-17, more than likely. Another Atlas Air, so I see a lot of 747s, okay? And then if we look at where they're all headed, look at this, RZE. Everything else is either RZE or Ramstein. So we've got a lot of activity coming out of Dover this morning, all outbound over to Europe. And 747s, that could be moving some tanks, missile defense, could be the Patriots we just talked about in the news. Right? The Brits, they're out near the Falkland Islands. That would be, well, let's just see what else we got here. Portsmouth. So you can see one rolling out of the U.S. headed down, looks to be headed kind of southwest. And then this other one here headed into the Middle East. That's level at 29,000. Right. Camber flights. This is going to be your U.S. Transportation Command, also known as Camber. And you will see they are actually coming in to the U.S., departed out of Ramstein. Pretty active over here into Europe. As you can see, all the different base locations throughout. That's RZE. That's headed into forward operating base in Poland. Nuremberg. So there's a lot. It's pretty active today. Not as active as we have seen in the past, but pretty active. All right. This is going to be Ramstein. And just see, you can see that here they are. 747s rolling in. 767, that would be troops. More troops right here coming out of Turkey. And then 747s out of Dover. And let's see, from there, headed to 747s headed back over to Seoul, Korea. That's going to probably just fly straight east from there and probably heading over to get 155 millimeter artillery because we still are taking it from them. And then, of course, here's another Camber flight leaving destination unknown. I think that's a C-130. Omni headed to JFK. That very, very likely is taking immigrants, Middle Easterners that have come out of the either West Bank or Gaza. And then we fly them into Ramstein, they get processed, and then we send them into JFK via Omni. All right. And then we've got this one, looks to be headed back to Turkey. All right. New Russian glide bombs are proving highly effective as the summer offensive begins. So these are what what a glide bomb looks like. I'll throw this on to here just for a minute. You can see them leaving the aircraft. Little wing slats pop out, and it allows that aircraft to be more accurate and go for longer ranges. And anyway, just a kind of an idea what that looks like. And then this is what it looks like. They're pretty heavy duty. You can see it hitting that building. That's a doozy of an explosion. So anyway, that's what a glide bomb it looks like and what it's been doing. But they're saying the Russians, as they kick off their summer offensive, that it is one of the big things that they're pushing. Okay. Now, look at this. Well, let me just go back. I want to show you this piece before we get too far into, look at the Ukraine aspect. The big takeaway here for me is just the sheer fact that what I see is a lack of blue dots. All right. The reds, that's Russian, popping things off. But the blues really are far and few between. That tells me that Ukraine and NATO are conserving what they have. They're holding it back for probably an all-out offensive, if I had to guess. Now, we are out of the spring, so the spring offensive didn't happen, but that could have been delayed just given the fact that our Congress listened to the people for a delayed period of time before Mike Johnson greenlighted the whole thing and they got their money eventually. But that holdup that took probably 30, 45 days has impacted probably that spring offensive. So this is what it looks like. Hasn't changed. In fact, you could look at this versus when it started 2 years ago, and nothing really has changed. Okay. All right. So the Russians are claiming they shot down that U.S. spy drone over the Black Sea, but that is not really the story when you look at this. See this right here? Crimea has been rocked by explosions after a reported ATACMS strike. Now, I'm going to play this, and it's on mute, but you can see these explosions coming in. Here's what I'm understanding. That it wasn't just ATACMS, but from what I'm finding is that they actually did cluster bombs onto a beachhead, and it injured a boatload of people, including children. So not cool, not good. You can imagine what would happen if Russia were to, say, hit Miami Beach with cluster bombs. It would be absolute. The United States would respond with force, guaranteed. It's just, you could not do that, right? So Russia, I would not be surprised if that indeed is what happened. So here, Russia's blaming the U.S. for a missile attack on Crimea. And here's the thing. It says Russia on Sunday said the U.S. had responsibility for a Ukrainian missile attack on Russian annexed Crimea, which it said killed 4 people, including 2 children, and wounded over 100 people. Now, they later revised the toll for 4 dead, 151 people requiring medical care, 82 had to be hospitalized. And that's not good. If the U.S. is behind it, which we know they are, because one, they used ATACMS, right? That's this missile system, all right? So, not good. And Russia has already said that they will indeed retaliate. So let's see how they do it. Could it be cyber? There's no telling, but pay close attention. Okay, here's something else that you have to pay attention to, because we've talked about giraffes. We've talked about all the different military-industrial complex here domestically in the U.S. ramping up to these insane amounts of output. This right here, again, look, Serbia is begins to work in 3 shifts, and just keeping in mind that they also produce weapons for Ukraine. The reason that is being brought up, and this is off the Ukrainian news network, is because Serbia is pro-Russian, all right? So for them to be providing this over to Ukraine is, they're saying this is mainly going to be the 155 millimeter artillery that they're producing, but they do a lot of other stuff too. But yeah, very interesting how we tend to align ourselves. Turkey is the same way. That relationship with Russia is very strange. So, okay, now this is RZE Poland, forward operating base. The big takeaway, we're just going to go through. Notice you got base commanders coming in. I see camper flight coming inbound from Dover. So we do see, again, a little bit of a surge of things being delivered in. But what we don't see, here's another camper flight. What we're not seeing is any indication on the battlefield that that NATO, U.S., or Ukraine, any of them are actually attacking, other than the thing we just talked about in Crimea. It seems as though they're holding and waiting for something. All right, Romanian village is set to become NATO's biggest airbase in Europe. They're talking about this place in Constanta, by the way, and it started construction. Let's see, I think it was just about maybe a year ago or so that we heard about them, adding to this. It was an existing location, but they've been building on it very frequently. Okay, in fact, nonstop. And now I think it's pretty close to being ready. This would be about as close as you can get from a forward operating base to Russia and Crimea. This is Crimea. This is the area that just got hit. Remember, too, you get into the water system as you get up a little further. And somewhere, I think right up in here is a nuclear power plant. There's a lot of stuff inside Ukraine that could certainly change the dynamics of this war quickly, including labs, etc. So, but this is Constanta. It's the only port the Ukrainians are able to use to get their things in and out. All right. And so that is, again, just a data point for you. But this is where that base location is being stood up as well. We go down a little to what is flying in and out, and you will see Brio 68. There's one of your intel birds. There is a base commander coming from RZE down to this location. So it is definitely an area we want to keep our eye on, and we'll keep monitoring that, okay? All right, here's your Omnis. We talked about what they've been doing over the last 5 days, but this is, you can see, coming out of Guam all the way direct to Ellsworth Air Force Base. So that is more than likely, that's bringing probably, it's a 777. That's going to be troops coming out of Guam, coming back. Ellsworth that's a bomber base, so pay attention to that. Another 777 coming out of Hawaii, headed to Saba, so Kota, Saba. And don't ask me where that is. I guess it's out here somewhere. and then Alliance over to Shannon, Ireland. So I'm seeing right now what looks to be all troop-related stuff. All right. National Cargo, a lot of flights coming out of, maybe National Cargo is getting in on the mix too. See this Airbus Alexandria? Let me roll that up a little bit higher for you. That's a 72-hour holding facility for immigrants in that location as well, headed to Lansing, Michigan. So that looks to be an immigrant flight. Okay. And all right. And the only other thing I was going to just show you was that we've got a new GPS jam up going, which is last time we looked, everything was green. And you can see we're starting to see some medium locations that have some type of GPS interference. Notice down here near the border, keep in mind this is, you've got Del Rio right here, but the Chinese also have a very large location right in the same area near McLaughlin Air Base, all right, Air Force Base. And so, coincidence maybe? And then, of course, you can see pretty heavy jam there too. If we go over to Europe, that is a spot we typically would see all of this, and it is very, very high in terms of the interference for GPS there. All right. Well, listen, that is going to do it for our Sitrep today. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday. We will see you in the Q&A for those folks that are the members that are in the live audience. We'll see you here in just a minute on the other side of this. So that's it. You guys be safe. Keep that powder dry. Stay frosty. We'll talk soon. God bless. Monkey out. Artisan handcrafted soaps. Get yours in the Monkey Werx shop today.